management thought that they could feed the beast. And so every now and then it's like, okay, we'll give you Mark Steyn, we'll give you Lawrence Fox, we'll give you Dan Wootton, hell, we'll even throw in Father Calvin Robinson, you know? And actually all that happened is then Ofcom then said, okay, well, we've got rid of those crazy far-right loons. I know, we're going to come for Jacob Rees-Mogg now. And so it was never enough. They needed to, you know, GB News' whole thing was, we want to be regulated. We believe in state regulation. Why? Why? Why the hell should we trust the state to regulate our media? Why the hell should we trust a word that they say when it comes to regulation after what happened during COVID, which is that they forced mainstream media organizations not to run true stories, which have been some of the biggest scandals of our time.
And you started at GB News, and you said that was, you know, amazing for you. It was a kind of revolution, wasn't it? It was on television. How do you think that's gone?
Well, I mean, it certainly wasn't amazing for me. Like, honestly, working at GB News at the launch of GB News is the most stressful thing I've done in my life. I mean, I don't know if anyone watched the first night or the first nights of GB News, and it was catastrophic. And the thing is, it had been like a train, you know, when you can see that a train is about to crash, it's like I'd known for weeks, oh my God, we are not even close to being ready to go on air. I remember, so at my last rehearsal, Konstantin Kisin was on the panel, because we were getting in like trial panelists, and we literally gave up after like 10 minutes, and he said, I knew at that point that this was going to be catastrophic. It was nothing to do with us. It was all to do with the technology wasn't ready. They just were not ready to launch this channel. But in a weird way, Andrew Neil's departure from the channel was actually a real gift, because he was an establishment guy. I mean, I know everyone today is like loving Andrew Neil because he's written this column in the Mail slamming the Labour government. But honestly, Andrew Neil was so on the wrong side of history when it came to COVID. And I also remember telling him, and I think this looks, him telling me, sorry, it looks really wrong now, but he said to me, Dan, why do you keep talking about Brexit? You know, it's done, it's over. And he was a big COVID lockdown guy. So actually, I think it was a real gift, the fact that we were the underdogs right from the start, because he left. Eventually, Mark Steyn came in. Nigel Farage came in, and all of a sudden, we were actually doing really daring, crazy stuff.
Well, there was a period of time with Mark Steyn, there was you, it really was an alternative voice. The bizarre thing, it was an alternative voice on television, and I mean, I for one never thought I would see that, you know. What was it like when it was good? Well,
I mean, it's really interesting because it was never easy to work at GB News. I mean, I would honestly, like, come in and one day we would be off air for 45 minutes. And I'd be sitting in the studio just seething, you know, because it's like, this is not good. How is this still happening? But what we were doing was really exciting. And what was so interesting to me is that we were total outsiders at that point. So now, GB News is an establishment organ now. You know, I see all the Tory politicians, they line up and go on, even the Labour ones did. None of them wanted to come on at the start. None of them. None of them wanted a bar of what we were doing on GB News, because it was too daring, too risky for them. But that is when GB News was actually brilliant, because we were treated as a laughing stock. So the establishment for a period didn't care, right?
You could do what you wanted.
Because the off-communists didn't care. They're like, oh, they're just a joke. They're a joke. You know, they can't even stay on air for a full hour. So why do we need to worry about them? And then, obviously, our ratings ended up taking over in prime time both the BBC News Channel and Sly News. And so it was like, oh, God, actually, we've got to be a little bit worried about these guys. And the first person... Well, there were a couple of free speech. See, this one never gets talked about, but actually Dominic Frisby was the first person cancelled from GB News. And not many people know that. He probably won't thank me for saying this because he's sort of got away with it, you know. But he did nothing wrong, you know. He told a joke. He told a joke on the show Headliners, and he was the first person cancelled. And when that happened, I was like, okay, this is concerning, because it shows they are so nervous that they will literally just sack... Like, Dominic Frisby was there one night, never to return again. And he was one of the three main presenters of headlines. It just never became a scandal. It never became a thing. And then Mark Steyn had Naomi Wolf on, talking about the COVID vaccine. And it was like that was the moment that the off-communists decided that's our red line and we're going to go for him over that. Now, what people don't know is I was fighting huge amounts behind the scenes when it came to Mark Steyn. I feel bad I didn't for Dominic Frisby, and not because I made a choice not to. It's just like no one was really talking about it.
No one was really talking about it.
Yeah, it was just like, why is Dominic not here? And then someone was like, oh, he told a joke, and it was considered anti-Semitic. It wasn't, by the way. Like, he has so many Jewish friends. It's like ludicrous to suggest Dominic Frisby is anti-Semitic. But with Mark Steyn, what people didn't know is for about 3 or 4 months before he was actually removed from the channel. And I was on the cruise with Mark Steyn has a cruise, and I was on it recently. And I mean, he genuinely feels like GB News were trying to kill him. You know, he had a heart attack and they used that moment to sack him. It was all pretty unedifying. But before that, for about 3 months, I had been fighting behind the scenes with Neil Oliver and Michelle Dewberry to try and stop the management from doing what we knew they were about to do to Mark Steyn, because they had Jacob Rees-Mogg lined up. It was all part of this move to like, well, Mark Steyn calls it Tories and trivia. And I saw what was coming. And for me, that was the beginning of the end of what the GB News that I wanted it to be, I guess, because I mean, honestly, following Mark Steyn was like the greatest thing ever because it made me so brave. I was like, there's nothing that I can say that is even going to come close. You know, he was like parading a mask of Angela Rayner and calling her the ginger growler. And, you know, it was nuts. It was truly nuts, but it was also truly brilliant.
Because all the women are laughing at that.
And he did things during that show that have changed, and he gets no credit for it, by the way, gets no credit for it whatsoever, but have changed the direction of our cultural discussions. So it wasn't, I mean, I won't name any names, but it was Mark Steyn who started the conversation about the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs on GB News. It was. No one else. It was all down to Mark Steyn. Likewise, COVID and the vaccine injured. Now, I was very proud to play my part too, but he was a true hero. So when he went at that point, and remembering I'd been arguing for a long time behind the scenes, I saw what was happening. I saw the change coming towards the channel. But then, of course, this campaign to cancel me started.
If you're enjoying what we're doing here on Outspoken, please consider joining our thriving community over on Substack, www.outspoken.live. You can sign up completely for free, but Substack is so important to me. It is a free speech platform. It protects me from big tech cancellation. Plus, you get to communicate directly with me. Head on over www.outspoken.live, enter your email address, and sign up today.
Yeah, and you kind of saw the writing on the wall for yourself? Kind of.
Well, no, actually no, because I know they wanted me to stay because I had the top-rated show, and GB News is all about the ratings, right? They just want the ratings. But when the left, and I've gone into it a lot, but it wasn't just the left. This is the hard left, Byline Times, working with Prince Harry, who was very involved in this. It was a genuine orchestrated cancellation campaign. And they just couldn't take it after a certain amount of time. You know, like, and there were so many people who were such letdowns over that period. I mean, honestly, I will never forgive a woman. I don't know how many people in this room know her, but Caroline Dinenage, who's the head of the Media Select Committee in the United Kingdom, a conservative.
Fred Dineage's daughter.
I mean, a conservative with a big C, because this woman is not a small c conservative. But she literally basically started a campaign to get myself and Bev Turner removed from GB News. Now, with Bev, it was because of her support of Russell Brand. And with me, it was because of these allegations that were being made by Byline Times. All completely untrue.
All completely untrue.
And it's like, how dare she? You are a politician, number one, an elected politician, but as the head of the Media Select Committee, how on earth do you believe that your role is to dictate who private companies choose to hire on their station? And the problem is, I saw what happened behind the scenes at GB News. Remember, I've worked in lots of big mainstream media companies, so I know what it's like when a campaign by the state becomes so heavy that they're just terrified. Because the Jeremy Boring, who was the chief executive of the Daily Wire, who is the, Chris Polosky, who's the chief executive of Rumble, received exactly the same letter from Caroline Dinenage in regards to Russell Brand. His response was incredible. It made me so proud. But it was basically, and excuse my language, it was basically, fuck off. Like, you have absolutely no right to tell me who I am going to broadcast on my platform. GB News' response was like, oh yeah, we're taking what you say really seriously. Like, I just knew at that point, I'm like, the game is up, this is done, it's over, they've got me, and that's what happened.
The thing is, this is so symbolic of the upside down world we live in, isn't it? Where they will go for commercial or independent broadcasters like you, but they will completely leave public service broadcasters alone. They won't touch them. They won't touch the BBC. And they will let the BBC get away with bias and ridiculous kind of accusations and God knows what. In terms of all of that stuff, that being a warrior, that fighting back, is there a sense now, if you think about young people, is there evidence that that's happening with younger people as well? Bearing in mind that these people have been brought up, they know nothing else other than woke identity politics, race politics, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I do see lots of positives, actually, because the great thing about young people today is that, and this is a technological thing rather than an editorial thing, but they are never going to get their news from the mainstream because they just don't. So all of a sudden we've got an equal playing field. So that excites me a lot. But honestly, there are some real structural issues in this country, and until we deal with them, and I'm talking about in the media space, like, why does Ofcom exist? Seriously, why does it exist? There are literally so many examples on LBC, right, with James O'Brien, which cross...
Second time he's been mentioned today, actually, isn't it? Yeah, go on.
Well, which cross... Oh, sorry about that. We never like talking about him, do we? But which cross every single possible boundary, which if GB News was doing the same thing, both in terms of bias and conduct...
They'd be shut down tomorrow.
100%. Now, by the way, I'm not for a single second suggesting that James O'Brien should be taken off air. Not for a single second. What I'm suggesting is that I'm actually suggesting there should be no Ofcom, and that was always my position at GB News. Actually, interestingly, it was always Nigel Farage's position too. We always wanted management to be so much stronger. Management thought that they could feed the beast. And so every now and then it's like, okay, we'll give you Mark Steyn, we'll give you Lawrence Fox, we'll give you Dan Wootton, hell, we'll even throw in Father Calvin Robinson, you know? And actually, all that happened is then Ofcom then said, okay, well, we've got rid of those crazy far-right loons. I know, we're going to come for Jacob Rees-Mogg now. And so it was never enough. They needed to, GB News' whole thing was, we want to be regulated. We believe in state regulation. Why? Why? Why the hell should we trust the state to regulate our media? Why the hell should we trust a word that they say when it comes to regulation after what happened during COVID, which is that they forced mainstream media organizations not to run true stories, which have been some of the biggest scandals of our time.
It isn't regulation, it's authoritarian.
100%.
Isn't it? And as you say, it's never enough. They'll go further and further and further.
But it's never on the left.
Into the center. It's never on the left. It's always on the right. The right is just this thing to eat. Dan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But first, this episode of Outspoken is brought to you by Manscaped, the global leader in men's lifestyle and grooming. And I'm very excited to say the heat has officially arrived overseas. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra in the white hot special edition colourway from Manscaped, now available across the UK, Europe, and Australia too. Now, this is the same trimmer trusted by millions of men down below, now with a clean white and gold finish that looks just as smooth as it shaves. And it isn't just a pretty face. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is built to handle your most sensitive areas with care, helping reduce the risk of nicks, cuts, and irritation where it matters most. So whether you're cleaning things up for a date, a trip, or just to feel a bit more put together, the White Hot trimmer makes below the waist grooming a whole lot smoother, literally. Join over 12 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Use the code Outspoken for 15% off your entire order at manscaped.com. And let me tell you, the ladies in the Outspoken audience would really do well as using this as a fail-safe gift for your boyfriend, your husband, your son, your brother, your hard-to-buy-for best mate, because the blades are designed to glide over the skin with less tug and pull, helping the bloke in your life avoid the usual redness or irritation that comes with low-quality groomers. It's simple, it's effective, it doesn't require a whole routine. Just pick it up, clean up, and move on. Whether you're using it in the shower, on the glow, or standing over the sink before a night out, the White Hot 5.0 Ultra fits into your day without getting in the way. Plus, the white and gold design actually looks so good, I don't think you'd want to be hiding this away in the bottom drawer, right? White Hot looks, smooth results. The White Hot 5.0 Ultra brings the heat without cooking your skin. It's sleek, easy to use, and way less terrifying than whatever you were using before. Use the code Outspoken for 15% off your entire order at manscaped.com. That's 15% off with the code Outspoken at manscaped.com. But now, back to the show.
Okay, we've got a few minutes for questions. Again, can you put your hand up, please? And can you keep them relatively brief? And let's try and get as many in as we can. So, questions for Dan, please. There's one here, the gentleman in the blue shirt.
Make them really hard and nasty, please.
You said it.
Hi, Dan. I don't know if this is nasty, but it's probably hard. Disinformation. I'm thinking particularly about disinformation about face masks. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, I hasten to add. But if you look at the Cochrane Review, which is the gold standard of medical evidence, and read the one on community measures against transmission of COVID, it says the studies were pretty crap, but based on available evidence, there is no evidence whatsoever outside clinical settings that face masks did anything. But I can guarantee the next time we have any kind of disease outbreak, we'll have the face mask police straight out again, even though the medical evidence is they don't work. How do we deal with stuff like that?
Well, I think the way that we deal with it is by not allowing our big tech gatekeepers to be the arbiters of what is true and what is not true. So the big issue of what happened over COVID, right, is that YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, because it was Twitter at the time, Instagram, so all of the big platforms, TikTok, which is so censorious, they all were taking their information from the World Health Organization. And so what it meant is there was a total globalist takeover of the media. Now, what I pray and hope happens next time, but I don't have much faith in this, unfortunately, unless Trump is still in office, is that there is no censorship on the big tech platforms and that we're allowed to interview people, be it Robert Malone or Asim Malhotra or RFK Jr., all people, by the way, who I did have on my GB News show, but it was difficult because if you were an independent broadcaster, you could lose your entire income just by having one of those people on.
Well, it's the same story. It's exactly the same story over and over again. It's the cancellation narrative, isn't it? There's a gentleman there with the dark hair.
Thank you. Dan, one aspect that social media has revealed is the biases of journalists. If you look at the Twitter accounts of people like Emily Maitlis or John Sopel, it's highly unattractive, shall we say. Why do, and perhaps just speculate, why do journalists have views that are just so markedly out of sync with what the rest of the population, centre-left, centre-right, actually have? Is this the environment they live in, or is it just the pressures of the workplace, or are they true believers? What do you think it is?
I actually think they are true believers, and it's really interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of groupthink that goes on, and especially if you're at a place like the BBC. But the John Sopel, Emily Maitlis example is fascinating, right? I actually love what's happened because we're able to see now in real time what they really think. And just this week, John Sopel on the fake news agents, as I called it, was interviewing or speaking with Emily Maitlis. And he was revealing, it's fascinating, I actually played it on Outspoken on Friday, he was revealing the techniques that they used at the BBC to get around being able to put out their opinion. And it was so fascinating. It's stuff that I know, but I'm like, oh my God, they're admitting it. So it's like, he was talking about Trump and he'd say, yeah, if I thought he'd done something really repulsive, I'd just say, is this really repulsive, with a question mark? And Emily Maitlis spoke about using the term alleged. So I think what's happening is actually really helpful. And personally, it's like, fine, you do that on the news agents. But in terms of how it works in a newsroom, obviously I find it quite fascinating because I'm like, a lot of these people who think this way are working for Murdoch. That's what I could never get my head around. It's like, you're working at The Sun for Rupert Murdoch and you hate everything that he's about. I find it weird. But, you know, the current editor of The Sun is a new Labour woman, a close friend of Gary Lineker, and I think you can see it in their coverage. They endorsed Labour at the election, and this week they did a front page about done up like a kipper in regards to Starmer's deal, or, you know, new deal with the EU. And it was like, people were saying, oh, this is great, The Sun's back. And I'm like, no. They endorsed Labour. This is on you, The Sun, because we all knew what was coming. Like, I reckon every single person in this room knew what was coming when it came to Starmer and the EU.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that as well, I mean, we had a brilliant talk by Matthew Hamilton before, and Dan's just talked about that groupthink thing, and I think he just summed it up brilliantly. You know, it's like, what, other people think differently? I'm in this little Hampstead bubble, and other people think differently. I think there is a definite element of that, but there's also this element of contempt. They also know it's a double think thing. They know that people think differently, and they hate people for it. They hate people for being working class, having minds of their own, and wanting free speech. I think that's a really, really important thing. We had a hand over here, and there's one over there as well. We'll get through them. Yep. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Wootton. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful speech and presentation. I just wanted to... yes?
No, you were okay.
I just wanted to ask, if there was more growth of influencers and journalists, of people who look like myself and based in bougie, do you think Ofcom would regulate them and cancel them out?
If they can, yes. Absolutely. And I think it's going to be so interesting to see what happens with people like you online, because how long is this Labour government and the off-communists going to allow you to broadcast freely online? I think it's really interesting, but it's not going to be easy for them, because the example that I always use, because people keep saying, well, they're going to come for the internet, and they are trying to regulate the internet with the online safety bill, right? But if they truly try to regulate news shows online, the risk that means is that they would also have to regulate Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson. So it opens up a whole can of worms. So I think they're going to try. I think they're going to try and find a way. And I don't rule out the fact that I might have to be like pirate radio at some point, you know, be broadcasting my show from Florida. Yeah, you know, which would be okay, right? Florida would be all right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, but keep doing it.
It's funny, isn't it? You know, years and years ago, if someone would have said you're going to get a really authoritarian government, most people would have thought that government was going to be from the right. Most people who thought or knew anything about the left knew damn well that Keir Starmer's government was going to happen sooner or later. We've got a gentleman here with the beard.
Hi there. They say you get what you pay for. Is individual subscription the future of the financial model?
Yes.
And we saw the debacle over advertising at GB News, and the whole YouTube demonetization. And how do you get around that for people who can't afford 50 subscriptions?
Yeah, I mean, that is really interesting, actually. I mean, the first thing is I encourage everyone to cancel their BBC license fee, use that money to support journalists or journalistic organisations that you love, because honestly, that £5 a month is the difference between you being able to operate. I'm sure it's the same for the New Culture Forum, and not being able to operate. In terms of the bigger questions, though, I don't want to ever have to work for a billionaire again in my life, genuinely. It is so important. I mean, probably when I look back, the most caustic and toxic influence at GB News were the owners. And by the way, that's not to say that they're not, on the whole, really good people, right? Like Paul Marshall and the Legatum Institute, I'm sure most of us in this room would look at them on the whole and say they're quite a positive force for Britain. But no broadcaster should be concerned about personal relationships that billionaires have when you're broadcasting your work. And trust me, you are if you're at GB News, and believe me, you really are if you're working for Murdoch. So absolutely the solution is individual subscription going forward, because I think now people have much more trust in individuals than they do organizations. And just from a practical point of view, Substack, for example, is a genuine free speech platform. It is going to allow people who would not be allowed in the past on other platforms. They've proven that they're going to be strong in terms of allowing even some neo-Nazi voices, right? Which obviously is very controversial, but I think it shows a commitment to free speech, which actually should be embraced for that reason. And all I would say is that GB News is never going to be profitable. Trust me, no matter what they say. Sly News lost £80 million last year.
And yet they carry on.
£80 million.
And yet they carry on in the same vein.
Yeah, it's completely unsustainable. but it is completely unsustainable. And the great thing is, and I wait for this day, come on in, Beth Rigby and Robert Peston. You try and enter this space. They will fall flat on their face because people are not interested in that establishment narrative.
Yeah, I think the one thing to say there about the free speech thing, having opinions you despise. One, it's very important to let those people speak so you know who they are, okay? And two, you need to be confident, as we said in that last panel, to be able to easily fight back against that stuff and make them look risible.
Yeah, but none of us are saying that Lineker and Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart should be cancelled. I mean, my thing is great. If they go into the commercial marketplace and they can prove that they can survive in that marketplace, which at the moment, certainly Lineker's podcasts are proving, I'm more than happy with that. Just do not take money from the BBC. That is it.
That's one thing. But the other thing as well is with something like Substack, it actually has a mixed model, doesn't it? So you subscribe, and someone like Dan would offer material for people who are paying, but then you offer tons and tons of material for free as well, don't you?
Yes, and look, there are big debates about sort of bundling, and would it be possible in the future for people to also receive, Matt Goodwin and Konstantin Kisin as part of a bundle. And Liz Truss is working on a new right-wing network. But I'm just not sure if that's what people want, if they want another big brand now. The sense that I get is people just love authenticity.
DIY.
Yeah, and exactly, you don't need big studios or any of that, or any of the huge overheads of running a news organisation.
You want content and independence, essentially, don't you? Right, any more? I think we could, oh God, there's loads. We can take two more if they're very quickly. Chris there, yep.
I love it, so many questions, this is great.
Dan and Phil, actually. Media has been evolving over the last 50 years with technology. What do you think about the long-form conversation as podcast?
Yeah, I think it's been a game changer, an absolute game changer. I think the era of the gotcha interview is over.
Yeah.
And I do not shed a tear over that. Why should we have Nick Robinson just berating politicians and think that's a way to get an answer on anything? No, I want to listen to, I don't know, Richard Tice for 2 hours, because that is how I'm going to find out, are you actually committed to these £80 billion of tax cuts? Are you going to change the electoral system? We need to know how these people really think. And obviously, look, it's going to go down in history, isn't it? Those 2 interviews during the election campaign in the US on Joe Rogan of J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, I think changed the game.
Yep.
Because we now are going to expect a politician to be able to do that. And by the way, we all know that Biden would never have got through, not even close. And I don't think Kamala would have either, which is why she didn't do it. And actually, why on earth do we want someone leading our country if they can't sit down for a 2-hour interview? It should be the least they can do.
It's all linked, isn't it? It all comes back to censorship. It all comes, the gotcha is literally shutting someone down and not allowing them to speak positively. All of these things are together. Right, I think we can have one more question. Can we? Yeah, this gentleman here.
What lessons does New Zealand hold for this country?
New Zealand? Oh, God. You really don't want to get me started on that. So I'm a dual citizen.
I'm going to put a timer on him, I think, for this one.
I'll be very quick. I'm a dual citizen. I was born in New Zealand. My parents are English, so I'm proud of both countries. Yeah. But what has happened in New Zealand actually brings me great shame. I think it can all be summed up really in one soundbite, which was Jacinda Ardern in the middle of COVID, literally expressing to the New Zealand population, we are your single source of truth. Yeah. Do not listen to anything else apart from us. That's terrifying. That is true authoritarianism. She is evil. And I know that shocks some people because Jacinda Ardern is all about kindness, right? Like, she's got a book out about being kind. She is actually, and trust me, I've seen this up close. I have seen lives destroyed in New Zealand because people chose not to take the vaccine or chose not to stay in isolation. She has divided that society forever. And so it's very easy to criticize what the Conservative government did during COVID, right? And I think we could all probably agree that Boris Johnson got it wrong on a lot of fronts. I would argue that actually in his soul, he knew that a lot of what he did was wrong, and he is a libertarian who was captured by the globalist bodies. And all I say is thank God we didn't have Starmer or a figure like Jacinda Ardern in charge during the pandemic.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to clap twice. Dan Wootton.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.